Hi everyone, it's Two Peas in a Library here. I'm Bree,
And I'm Lou.
and today we are going to be going over both the short story that appears in Joe Hill's book 20th Century Ghosts, but as you can see, it got reprinted due to the movie that recently came out for the Black Phone, and we are going to be doing a review of both the story and the movie as well as a compare and contrast.
Yeah, so as Bree said, that it's a short story within the stories, and we're just going to be talking about the one short, but on another video, we're going to do like an in-depth look on like our favorite stories and all of that. But if you have the paperback version, the Black Phone can be found on page 194. Um, and at least for me, because I haven't finished the book yet, it's been the most enjoyable story in the series, or in the book. Um, it's definitely got the good suspense. It's got like good imagery. Um, it has a good ending. Like I just really enjoyed it all.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, I it had good imagery and good descriptors. There are some things that I felt like could have been added to the story that were left out that I was kind of disappointed about. Otherwise, I felt like the writing style was kind of monotonous, but other than that, it was pretty good.
Yeah, like you can definitely kind of tell that this is like his first kind of breakout kind of thing because we also reviewed Horns, and that's I think that is definitely a step up in writing versus this one, and that's the only other book that I've read by him, so I can't compare it to like Fire Heart or Fire like what the other ones that he's written.
I've read Heart Shaped Box by him as well, and you can definitely tell that the writing styles are different. I think the 20th Century Ghost short story collection was one of his first, so it wouldn't
Yeah,
surprise me.
yeah, and I always rate like short stories like on how well they can be turned into a full book, and the Black Phone is definitely one that you could turn into like a full book, and like um the like the movie adds like all the detail, like most of the questions you're asking in the story the movie answers in
Mhm.
some form or another. Anything else about the story? Like it follows Finney, who I think is like a 13-year-old boy, and his sister, who is a year older than him, but they were born on the same day. So they have like they're like spiritual twins. That's what I've started to refer them as, anyways. So they can like they have like the twin telepathy kind of thing, in a sense.
Mhm.
Um, and so when Finney gets got by the grabber, like his sister Gwendolyn, is her name Gwendolyn in the story too,
I think so.
right? Um, is able to like help find him because of the twin telepathy, and it's a ride. It's 30 pages, but if you like it doesn't feel like it's 30 pages. Like it's a pretty quick story.
Very quick. Like I'd read it in one go on the light rail.
Yeah, like, and that's what 20, 10 minutes, 20 minutes.
20 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, so um you wouldn't like, even if you just pick up the book from the library with only the intention of reading the Black Phone, you could probably just read it at the library instead of taking it home or something. Go to a
Strongly su
bookstore.
Yeah. Strongly suggest you do that if you're gonna see the movie.
Yeah, like if you don't read it before you see the movie, it's not a huge deal because I guess we'll start talking about the movie a little bit now. The movie follows the story beat for beat pretty well. They added a lot of fun little details like the ghost kids, which isn't in this
Mhm.
story. Like they're not physical manifestations like we see, but Finney doesn't see them, so maybe they were there all along and they just added them into the movie for the audience kind of thing, you know? Well, that's obviously why they were added, but a little like more for the audience. And then like the ending fight scene with the grabber is, I feel, more chaotic in the story than in the movie, because it's like his brother comes down and is like, oh shit, I found the missing kid. My brother really is a piece of shit. And then the grabber comes and kills his brother and then is kind of like stuck on that for a minute. And Finney is able to like bash the grabber with the phone. And I think he picks up the axe and like hits him with the axe or something.
Yeah.
It's very chaotic, but that's kind of expected because it is like it all takes place in like a basement. So it felt claustrophobic, it felt chaotic, and I liked that atmosphere.
Yeah, in the movie, it felt like the ending fight scene was more organized, or thought out.
Yeah, which makes sense because like I think well in the story it doesn't like give a real timeline for how long Finney is stuck, but in the movie it's more they give more of a timeline for it. And the ghost kids help out more I think in the movie than in the story. Like the ghost kids in the story tell him to like, oh, fill up, like we're able to try to tunnel out or try to pull off this corner of the wall here so you can collect the dirt there and put it into the phone receiver and beat him down with it. And all of that. And then but in the movie they like help him like set well, they sort of help him set up a whole trap. They're like, well, we gave you all the tools to defeat him, so make sure to use them all. So and it's a little less chaotic. But I did like the big twist at the end of the movie that we'll talk about probably later. I liked that. That was a good, like, heart-stopping moment. But yeah, so the movie followed like I think my only complaints about the movie was that they made Finney's father out to be like just like a stereotypical like Stephen King family. Like he's an abusive dick.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but in the movie, the father, when he's talking to Gwen about her abilities and her like dreams coming true and whatnot, he gives the implication that her mom had the same thing and she ended up killing herself because of it. Her mom committed suicide.
Yeah, I kind of saw that more as her mom having like schizophrenia, but Gwen actually having like the gift to see things.
Right. So I'm wondering, did they make any kind of implication to that in the story, or is that something
No,
that
the
the movie
whole
added?
that's something the movie added because that's going to be my second complaint is that in this movie they never talk about whether Gwen and Finney are spiritual twins or like I thought that they were going to make them like full like fraternal twins, like they were actually like twins. But they never state anything, so I guess part of it could be just that like that's the chain, like they changed it up so she's dreams instead of has the twin telepathy. And like I didn't care for that. Like it's one line, it's a throwaway, it's like one throwaway line or something, you
Yeah.
know, where it's like, oh, you're turning whatever and I'm turning like our birthday is in so many days or something. Like there could have been a way to make it like a throwaway line or something, like
Right.
or even just a small detail or something. Because and I didn't hate this part, but part of it was that like it seemed like they aged up Finney to be like a 16 17-year old, I think a 16-year-old, because one of the kids, Bruce, was kidnapped and it had been a year. He was 17 that year when Finney gets taken, so they aged him up to 16, and it kind of seemed like they aged Gwen down.
Yeah, she definitely comes off as more of a younger sister in the movie.
Yeah, and like I didn't hate that, but it was kind of like like the big thing in the story is that they are born on the same day and she's older. But like it's fine that they made her younger, but like they should have stated somewhere that they like changed it or something. Like they should have made it more clear.
Yeah.
Um, and then what else?
Because like my only point of bringing that up was so like I know we talked about like their dad being abusive and whatnot, and I wanted to point out that I think a lot of that is just because of the grief of having lost his wife. Because at the end of the movie, when he gets Finney back, it definitely doesn't seem like he's naturally cold. It just seems like he just kind of is a drunk because his wife died. you know.
Yeah, and like it just bothered me because in the story it doesn't say like, oh, Finney comes from a broken home. He's always like out of the house because his dad's like an abusive dick and all of that. It just the only thing that's sort of mentioned is that like he goes to the store with his dad, but he always waits on the steps because the store owner sees him as um
Up to no
sees
good.
sees him as like a bad adolescent, like he'd steal stuff or something.
Yeah.
Um, so like that's the only thing. Like I didn't care for that detail. Like it wasn't necessary except to show that Gwen and Finney had a good sibling relationship, but like you don't need an abusive parent to make that a thing. Like
Right. You know something that really pissed me off?
hmm.
So something that I found really good about the writing in the short story was what he did with the whole grape soda thing. And I was so
Mm-hmm.
mad that they didn't and like they didn't incorporate that into the movie. Because it was like grape soda, yeah, cool, tastes good. And then he gets grabbed and he's like, wow, this aftertaste is something else.
I mean, they also didn't really do anything with his eyes either, except for the phone breathing,
Yeah.
which was weird. Like, and stuff like that is just kind of hard. Like when it comes to the senses, it's kind of hard to articulate those on the screen. Like A Quiet Place did it really well,
Yeah.
obviously.
Thank
But
you.
when it's some like you you can't just make the screen black because that's what the character sees. Like you could, but people would walk out. Like you wouldn't make any money.
Yeah.
So I just like maybe when we're seeing the world through Finney's point of view, they could have done like some kind of overlay, like some kind of filter on the thing or something to show that Finney can't see very well, like something. But I didn't hate that they didn't like linger on any of that because again, sense is hard to show through screen.
Yeah. Something that I did want to point out and kind of ask your opinion on is I think in the short story, the grabber lures them in as being a clown, whereas, right, is he a clown in the short story? And they changed it to
Uh,
magician in the movie?
I
Or
mean,
am I?
clowns and magicians are basically the same thing.
Yeah, but he was a stereotypical tall, lanky, dressed in black magician in the movie.
I mean, that's just because it was no. So, um, the way the grabber is described in the thing in the story is he wasn't any kind of fat, but grotesquely fat. His head had been shaved to glossy polish, and there were two plump folds of skin where his neck met with the base of his skin. He wore a loud Hawaiian shirt, toucans nestled among hanging creepers, along although it was too cool for for short sleeves. So he wasn't described as a clown or anything. He didn't even have a van in it. He had like a station wagon, I think.
No, for some reason I thought he was a clown. My bad, I'm just tripping.
No,
But
you're thinking of John Wayne Gacy.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. I guess so. Either way, though, the movie kind of came up with the whole magician idea.
And it doesn't really play into anything. Like
I mean,
magicians don't
no.
wear
I'm,
masks. It just gives him an excuse to have a van.
I mean, true. What?
Like it
So I
doesn't.
don't know.
I didn't think it changed. Like it affected them. Like it didn't take me out of the movie that he was a magician instead of wearing a loud Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah. I kind of I don't know. Like it felt like they definitely portrayed the character differently in the story in the movie. I like the way they did it in the movie better.
I don't know. I don't like. So I'm gonna call it like there's the happy version, right, and then the mad version. The like the and I didn't like that the happy version seemed to lean more into like almost pedophilic territory, like pedophile territory, and I didn't care for that too much because like he's like caressing Finney and like all of that, and I didn't care for that too much. Because in the story, he just says that he basically wants company.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't know. So I feel like in the story, the character and the way that he comes off is very lonely, depressed, sad, decrepit, kind of, almost like he's just not, like he seems like someone that would be easy to overcome, which is why it isn't so hard to believe that Finney did at the
Yeah.
end. But I feel like in the movie, I think they gave the grabber's character more dynamic, because there was, the happy mode that definitely did seem more pedophilic, but for someone who's kidnapping kids, what do you expect? And the angry mode, who's more like strategic, more I'm gonna fuck with you, like let's see if you can escape me. Like he's there. I feel like there are two sides to the motivation of why he does it. The pedophilia, maybe the company, and there's also I want to see if these fuckers can actually
The
get
not
away
evil
from
way
me.
one.
Yeah,
Uh,
I
yeah, like
I like the dynamic of the character in the movie better, I guess.
yeah, no, I didn't hate it. Like it didn't nothing that they changed in the movie took me out of the movie.
No, I
If that
can't remember.
makes sense.
Another thing
Uh,
that I couldn't remember if it happened in the story or not is the scene in the movie where Finn gets out the first time, but he gets him again. That didn't happen in
no,
the
that
story.
that was no. He only gets out the when the brother comes down and gets axed.
I liked in the movie. He was an idiot, but he was my
Okay.
idiot.
Yeah, that's how I feel about you, honestly. Um, I do have to say, I love the fact that they had adult Eddie from the It series playing the brother, and I was like, my headcanon is that like this is an alternate universe. Eddie gets away from Derry, and like I don't know, that he goes and becomes a coked up dude in this one random town.
I mean,
and
after
is
what he went through when he was a kid, I wouldn't blame him for doing a little something, something.
so that's my headcanon. Like I like that funny thought. Uh, what else? One random detail that I just really loved, like I told you about it, is in the movie. There's so the last ghost, I think the last ghost kid he meets, which is the bully kid.
No, I think the last ghost was his friend that was good at
No,
fighting.
besides the last ghost he meets besides his friend was the bully
Okay, then
kid,
yeah,
I
the
think,
bully,
right?
yeah. Yep.
And one detail that I really loved was like when we see his ghost, his hair is all like brown, and like
Mhm.
you could think that that's his natural color, but then in this movie they all flash back to like when the kids get taken, and you see that his hair is like blonde, not like platinum blonde, but like blonde, and you're like, oh shit, what did this dude do to this kid to where his hair is literally brown now? And I just love that little detail because that just it says like so much
Like
about what
literally,
the
so
grabber.
the scene in that movie with that kid, like his flashback and the way that they incorporated it, like how they expressed her vision in regards to that
Mhm.
kid, like him carving the house number into the kid's arm that he was beating up, and the way that she was in the cop car with him, and how suddenly the motion of him making the kick made sense because he was kicking in the fence. I love the
Mhm.
way that they did that. I thought that was a really well done part of the movie. I also
And
love the fact that when Finn he's talking to him on the phone, he says, "Thank you," and he goes, "For what? This isn't for you. I want this dude dead. He killed me."
yeah, it also seems like during that scene, that he was like almost talking to Gwen versus Finn because he's like right here and he like points at the house and all of that. Like it seemed more like he was talking to Gwen versus Finney.
Yeah.
But Finney just happened to be listening in on it. It was like kind of confused because um the dude was just basically like use your anger and shit to defeat the guy.
Yeah.
um whatchamacallit. Yeah, no, I did enjoy all of it, but I think I'll say my one random complaint that's kind of like whatever, just like movie magic, just ignoring it basically is like, how did the grabber not like walk around any when he was in there when Finney's asleep and like find the hole? Or like when he goes into the meat freezer, does
Like
he
he
not
has to think
get
that
meat?
what does he do down there all day? Like,
Yeah, like
don't you want to
does
check that out? Like,
or like anything, like doesn't walk around, doesn't be like, oh hey, you moved the rugs. Like
oh
nothing.
hey, the grate on the window disappeared.
Yeah, how do you not notice that? That was something that like it was just random. It's like just movie magic, it's okay.
Also, like another peculiar detail that I would have picked up on, but me being detail oriented, um, there's that scene where like Finn is digging the hole with his hands. Like, wouldn't he have noticed like all the dirt in his dirty hands? Like,
right? Like, well, I guess okay. So that one can be explained away with like Finn using the like toilet tank and washing his hands or like whatever.
I suppose.
Because you see
And
him
water that
like
he's drinking
drink
out of
from
it.
it later. So
Yeah.
well, the upper part is like usually clean water.
Yeah, usually.
Bottom part that's nasty. But that is also like it did take place in like the 70s or 80s or something.
Yeah.
What else? Yeah, I don't know. Like I think that's the twist end. Do we want to talk about the twist ending?
I mean, sure, half of our podcasts have spoilers in them anyway.
Yeah. Well, so in the ending of the story, right? He just kind of leaves the house, and I think Gwen is there, and they go home or something. It's a happy ending, and in the movie, they so the way it happens is so the house that the ghost kids had been leading Gwen to was an empty house. And so like you're getting the build up like this is at the same time as Finney is fighting the grabber. It's the same time as like and the cops are going into the house and you're like, oh yes, Finney's gonna be saved, he's gonna be rescued, he's gonna be okay. And then they go in and it's like empty and you're like, okay, maybe the grabber like for some reason cleared out all of his like put his furniture somewhere else or something. Like you kind of explain it away in your mind, right? And then they find the basement and they're like, it's empty. It's empty, like what is going on here and all of that. And then they find the bodies of the kids and they're like so they have all of the cops and the coroners there and stuff like getting those kids out, and then Finney finishes his fight with the grabber and walks out of the house across the street. And I honestly I was just so tense because I was expecting the grabber to come back and like grab him and like kill him right there, even though the cops are right there, and then he'd get busted or something. But that didn't happen. It was a happy ending, and I felt very happy about that because they could have as easily just made it a really bleak ending, and I didn't like the story isn't like that. It would have not really made sense for the movie. Like
I was just pissed that it was something so easily stupid as it being the house right across the street because his van isn't covered.
I mean, this is also the 70s or 80s.
So.
But then that also leads a question to like, so his brother came and stayed with him. Like, why didn't he just have his brother move into the other house or something? Like, he owns both houses.
Yeah, I think the whole point is that he didn't want anyone to know that he owns a house across the street.
I guess.
Because dead bodies. Why not?
I guess, yeah. But you could also just like board up the basement so your brother can't go down there and then be like, oh, I bought this house so my brother could live here or something. Like, but yeah. The grabber is not a very smart man.
No, though I just think that Ethan Hawke did a very good job.
Mm-hmm. He was. I've been enjoying his turn to villainy because like I've seen him. This was him as a villain, and then I know you didn't watch it, but the Moon Knight series on Disney Plus, he's a villain in that too. And like I can't wait to see more of him as a villain. Finney, the actor that plays Finney and the actress that plays Gwen, like I think they have some successful careers ahead of them if they decide to stay in acting. Mm-hmm. Like because it was their movie, right? So theirs and the grabbers, and Ethan Hawke has already made a name for himself. But I think that they'll have successful careers if they decide to stay in it.
I love Gwen in the beginning where she's like, yeah, F you coppers, like F all of you. Her sass was supreme.
I love when Finney was getting beaten up after his friend had gotten taken.
And she Gwen just comes in with the fucking death blow, like, man, get I'm like, dang. I was like,
I thought she had killed a kid. And then he just sits there and blood just trickles down his head. And I'm like, oh, okay.
And then she sits next to him like, So
Because she had gone her teeth kicked in.
yeah, but I was like,
So they were like down and
fair.
out. But yeah, that's like the Black Phone. I really enjoyed it. Like the story I think is definitely like, I'm gonna say a 3.5 because there's definitely areas to be improved, but it is a short story. But the movie I think is like a 4 out of 5 because it
Yeah.
like answers most of your questions. It adds details that are needed. It adds some details that aren't. The abusive father. um and yeah, like definitely if you've like not seen it that yet or read it, like definitely go do that. um any last thoughts on it?
No, I definitely enjoyed it. I think the movie is going to do big things for Joe Hill's propaganda, his advertisement. So I think he's going to gain a lot more popularity from here on out, which I hope will kickstart more of his writing and more of his career. I'm hoping, especially with Stephen King being on the decline. He's getting
Yeah, because
older.
the last movie that Joe Hill like was with his books was Horns, and that was a ride.
Well,
Like,
like yeah, and that was a while
it
ago
was,
too.
yeah, so I'll be waiting to see what happens next, and I hope like more like kind of unknown horror authors start getting movies made by them. So
You and me both. We need it. The franchise needs it.
mhm.
Right.
Okay. Like we said, next time we'll probably end up doing a review of the entire what is it, 20th Century Ghosts book, and
Mm-hmm.
talking about our favorites and our least favorites and what worked and what didn't. So look out for that in the next couple of months.
Yep. Stay tuned.
Yep.
Doodles.